Gun guys will argue about anything: capacity, trigger pull, grip texture, which brand's logo looks coolest on Instagram. Fun debates, sure. But none of it means a thing at 2 in the morning when something goes bump and you reach for the nightstand. In that moment, your 9mm has exactly one job: go bang when you pull the trigger and stay dead silent when you don't. That's it. A gun that stutters even once has already lost your trust forever. So reliability is the only thing we're grading on today. Ranked worst to best in tiers running from F all the way up to S. Down in F, you'll find the stuff that might just shoot you instead of the bad guy. While up in S sits the kind of gun you'd trust with your own kid without thinking twice. And we're not handing out these grades on a hunch, because every single placement here is backed by real receipts, recalls, courtroom verdicts, and torture test round counts that don't lie. Fair warning, a few of these are going to sting. So hit that subscribe button and let's get into it. F tier, do not trust your life to these. We start at the very bottom, and these two earned their spot the hard way. Taurus GX4. On paper, this thing was a knockout. A slim, micro-compact 9mm, 11 rounds. Priced to undercut the SIG P365 and the Glock 43X by $100. People loved it. Then came May 2023, when Taurus issued a formal safety recall because certain GX4 pistols could fire when dropped. Not might go off if you pull the trigger wrong. Fire when dropped. The culprit was the internal striker block failing to do the one thing it exists to do, which is keep the gun from going off on its own. And this isn't ancient history either. As recently as 2026, a class action lawsuit is still working through the courts, citing a case where a dropped GX4 in an Arizona store reportedly fired on its own and killed someone. The whole thing caught on the store's camera. A carry gun that can shoot you without your finger anywhere near the trigger isn't a carry gun. It's a hazard you strap to your hip. Canik Meaty MC9. This one stings because Canik built a genuinely great reputation with their full-size TP9 line, and folks were thrilled to see it shrunk into a micro. Then the early guns started choking. The big one was failure to return to battery, where the slide rides forward off the magazine but stops just shy of fully locking up, leaving you holding a gun that looks ready and absolutely is not. Owners traced it to stiff recoil springs, gunk left in the striker channel from the factory, and feed ramp geometry that let rounds nosedive on the way in. To Canik's credit, later production batches cleaned a lot of this up, and plenty of recent MC9s run fine. But here's the thing about a defense gun. The later ones are mostly sorted out is not a sentence you want anywhere near the pistol you're betting your life on. Inconsistency is its own kind of failure. Two guns, two different stories. One that can fire when you don't want it to. One that won't fire when you desperately do. Both are exactly what F tier was made for. D tier, serious baggage you can't ignore. Moving up one rung, these aren't death traps, but they carry enough weight in the wrong places that you'd be foolish to look past it. Sig Sauer P320. I already know the comment section is warming up, so let me be fair before I'm blunt. The P320 is accurate, modular, ergonomically excellent, and it won the US military contract that became the M17 and M18. None of that is in question. What is in question is whether the civilian version, almost always sold without a manual safety, can be trusted not to fire on its own. And the paper trail there is genuinely alarming. A Georgia jury handed down $2.35 million in June 2024 over a holstered P320 that allegedly went off without anyone touching the trigger. And months later, a Philadelphia jury piled on with an $11 million verdict in a separate case. More than 100 lawsuits are stacked up making the same claim. New Jersey became the first state to sue over it. And the list of agencies that have pulled or suspended the gun reads like a roll call. Chicago, Houston, Denver, an entire state training commission, even ICE and an Air Force command. SIG insists the design is sound, and that's their position to hold. But when this many courtrooms and this many departments independently decide they've seen enough, that's not noise you wave away on a gun meant for appendix carry. Kimber Micro 9. Here the trouble isn't drama, it's temperament. Kimber sells this as a jewel-like scaled-down 1911, and at $700 to $900 it shoots beautifully when everything's clean. The problem is that those tight pretty tolerances turn into a liability the moment real-world carry introduces lint, sweat, and carbon, which is to say always. It wants frequent cleaning and a generous coat of lube just to stay honest. It can nosedive on certain hollow point shapes and trigger quality wanders from one example to the next. Beautiful range toy, questionable lifesaver. Two guns held back by very different sins. One fighting lawsuits, one fighting itself. C tier, capable but with an asterisk. Now we land on the guns that genuinely work, as long as you actually read the fine print stapled to each one. Glock 43X A modified. Here's the thing, leave it stock, running Glock's own 10-round mags, and the 43X is a quietly excellent little pistol that honestly flirts with a much higher grade. The asterisk shows up the moment folks start improving it, which is basically everybody. The favorite move is dropping in aftermarket steel magazines to bump it up to 15 rounds. And those skinnier metal walls tweak the angle each round feeds at just enough to cause failures to feed. Whenever your grip or slide speed wobbles even a little, then there's the optics cut version, where a mounting screw that's a hair too long can poke into the extractor channel and shut the whole gun down cold. None of that is Glock's fault, and that's what makes it so maddening. The 43X runs like a champ exactly how the factory shipped it, and gets a little less trustworthy every time somebody tries to make it better. Glock 43 lots, the standard one. And here's the irony, because its little brother has the opposite problem. The plain Glock 43 is about as reliable as a hammer. People have run 1,000 rounds through one without a hiccup, and it carries that bulletproof Glock name for a reason. So why is it stuck here in C? Capacity, plain and simple. It holds 6 rounds. 6. Back when it launched, that was the price you paid to carry something this slim. But the world moved on, and today guns the exact same size swallow 10, 13, even 15. You're paying the same money and packing half the ammo. The gun didn't get worse, the competition just lapped it. Both of these are good Glocks held back by an asterisk. One you bolt on yourself with a parts bin, the other stamped on it by the calendar. Quick breather before we climb into the good stuff. If this ranking's been useful so far, do me a solid and tap subscribe. It's the only reason I get to keep making these. Alright, the bottom's behind us. Now it gets fun. B tier. Proven workhorses. From here on out, we're done talking about the stuff that keeps you up at night, and we start talking about guns that have genuinely earned their keep. Each one's only kept out of the top by something small enough that you can shrug and live with it. Smith & Wesson Shield Plus. The original Shield pretty much kicked off this whole slim carry craze, and then the Plus took that same winning shape and quietly snuck a bunch more rounds inside. Without anybody noticing it had gotten any chunkier. It'll eat whatever defensive ammo you hand it. That flat-faced trigger is a genuine treat at this price, and it's ridden around on more waistbands than you can count without ever throwing a fit. So why isn't it higher? Little stuff that piles up. That fully loaded 13-round mag puts up a fight on the last round and takes a real shove to seat on a closed slide. And a few high-mileage owners have watched the trigger safety pin slowly creep loose under recoil. Nothing that'll hurt you. Just a bit of grit in the gears worth mentioning. Ruger Max 9. This is the budget gun that apparently never got the memo it was supposed to feel cheap. It shows up optics ready right out of the box, packs a solid stack of rounds for something this small, and runs with that same bullheaded dependability Ruger's been famous for going on decades now. Give it good defensive ammo and it just goes trip after trip after trip. The complaints are honest and minor. The trigger does its job without thrilling anybody, and that snappy little slide wants a firm, deliberate grip. Get lazy with your hold, and it can occasionally hiccup. Dollar for dollar, though, that's a striking amount of gun you can trust. Two honest workhorses right here. Neither one's exciting, and around these parts, that's the highest compliment there is. They just show up and get it done. A tier. Exceptional right out of the box. This is where good enough politely excuses itself and leaves the room. The guns up here don't ask anything of you except ammo. No break-in ritual, no aftermarket parts to make them run right. No quiet little prayer as you rack the first round. They've already proven themselves over round counts that would leave lesser pistols in pieces. Walther PDP. Honestly, Walther overbuilt this one, and you can feel it the second you start running it hard. The chamber's shaped to push carbon gunk out of its own way. Instead of gagging on it, the extractor is an oversized brute that rips empty brass loose like it's got something to prove. And the trigger snaps at about 4 pounds with that crisp little wall the serious shooters get misty about. Run it dirty, run it soaked, run it like you forgot you owned it. It just keeps cycling, totally unbothered. The only catch for carry is that it sits a touch tall in the hand and runs a bit wide, so you'll have to dress around it. Small price for a gun this relentless. Springfield Hellcat and Hellcat Pro. Springfield built these around a hammer-forged barrel and a serious dual recoil spring setup, and the testing backs up the bragging. That same pistol ate 20,000 rounds in documented endurance testing without a single part crying uncle. They squeezed 11+1 into a frame this tiny and wrapped it in grip texture that bites like sandpaper, in the best possible way. There's a fair trade though. That stubby slide snaps back with real attitude, and the stiff springs make it a genuine wrestling match to rack if your hands aren't strong. Power and dependability, with a little bite as the cover charge. Two guns that flat out refuse to quit. No asterisks, just a little wardrobe planning and a firm handshake. S tier, the gold standard. And here we are at the top of the mountain. These are the guns that don't just pass the reliability test, they're the reason we even bother running one. Every gun up here has been pushed way past the point where a normal pistol throws in the towel, and it just kept asking for more. Sig Sauer P365. Now here's the irony for you. The gun sitting at the very top of this list is the same one whose troublemaking cousin we buried down in D tier. Same family name. Completely different story. When this little thing showed up in 2018, it did something everybody in the industry swore couldn't be done. It crammed 10+ rounds into a grip about as skinny as a single stack, and then it actually backed up the hype. There's a rental P365 out there that got beaten half to death by hundreds of strangers, and it ate over 50,000 rounds before a single part gave up. And when something finally broke, a guide rod, 5-minute fix, 50,000 rounds through a pocket gun, and that's all it had to complain about. No wonder it's the best-selling handgun in the country. Glock 19 Gen 5. Look, you simply cannot make a list about 9mm reliability and pretend this gun doesn't exist. The Glock 19 has been the measuring stick everything else gets held up against for longer than some of you have been alive. And the secret isn't some clever gadget. It's that there's almost nothing inside it. Barely 30-something parts, which means barely 30-something things that could ever let you down. The Gen 5 just polished the recipe. A tougher finish that shrugs off rust, a better barrel, and not one dumb change to the stuff that already worked. Feed it garbage ammo, drop it in the dirt, freeze it, cook it, it shrugs, and goes bang. Top-tier units around the planet trust it for the most boring reason there is. It just works. Heckler & Koch CC9. HK sat out the micro-compact craze for years, watched everybody else have the party, then strolled in late and basically refused to lose. This isn't some big HK pistol with the end sawed off. They built it from a blank sheet chasing one thing, and the testing borders on ridiculous. 7 years, around 750,000 rounds. The same mud, dust, and drop torture their full-size duty guns survive, all before it ever hit a shelf. 3 guns, 1 promise. Stake your life on any of them and actually sleep at night. So there's the whole board, folks, F all the way up to S. And if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. The price tag and the logo on the slide tell you almost nothing about whether a gun will save your life. Some of the pistols we trashed at the bottom cost more than the ones we crowned at the top. Reliability doesn't care what you paid. Here's the honest bottom line. If your 9mm lives in F or D, do some reading before you bet your life on it. If it's sitting up in A or S, clean it, feed it good ammo, shoot it often, and carry it with confidence. That's the whole game. Now I want to hear it. What does your carry gun rank on this list, and did I put it where you think it belongs? Drop it in the comments because I read them and the arguments down there are half the fun. Hit subscribe and I'll see you on the next one.